You bite into an apple that tastes nothing like an apple. It's October 1386, and what's in your mouth is simultaneously sour enough to make your eyes water, astringent enough to dry your tongue, and somehow perfect for making the only alcohol that'll get your village through winter. This is a bitter sharp, one of dozens of apple varieties you grow that modern humans would spit out in disgust. But here's the thing. While modern supermarkets offer maybe 5 types of apples, all bred for sweetness and shelf life, all sprayed with up to 47 different pesticides, you're tending to over 30 varieties of apples alone, plus meddlers that need to rot before they're edible, service berries that taste like blueberry almond hybrids, quinces that smell like heaven but taste like punishment until cooked. Welcome to medieval fruit farming, where every fruit has a purpose. Nothing gets sprayed with anything that didn't come from another plant or animal. And organic isn't a marketing term. It's the only option you've got. Spring. The awakening of forgotten trees. It's March, and you're walking through an orchard that would make modern agricultural scientists weep with confusion. Nothing is in straight lines. Trees of different species grow together like they're having a conversation. Your pear trees are 80 feet tall because nobody told them they should be dwarf rootstock for easy picking. Your apple trees are growing into shapes that look like nature's middle finger to commercial farming. You're about to graft. See that knife in your hand? It's sharper than anything in your kitchen. Sharper than your razor, probably sharper than your wit after a hard winter. This is your grafting knife, and with it you're about to perform surgery that would make modern gardeners nervous, even with YouTube tutorials. You're taking a cutting from your best medlar tree, a fruit that modern people have literally never heard of, and you're going to convince it to grow on your hawthorn rootstock. Why? Because medlars are fussy about soil, but hawthorn doesn't care. It'll grow in ground that's more rock than dirt, and once established, it'll live for 200 years. The medlar cutting in your hand comes from a tree your grandfather grafted. When ripe is the wrong word. Medlars are eaten when they're bledded, which is a fancy way of saying rotten but in a good way. They turn brown, mushy, and develop a taste like spiced apple butter mixed with dates. Modern humans pay $30 for a jar of artisanal apple butter. You're growing it on trees. You make the cut. Diagonal, clean, exposing the green cambium layer where all the growth happens. No rooting hormone. That won't be invented for another 500 years. No grafting tape. You're using wool soaked in beeswax and resin. No fertilizer except the sheep dung worked into the soil last autumn. Meanwhile, in the 21st century, commercial apples get sprayed with organophosphates, nerve agents developed from World War II chemical weapons research. They get hit with neonicotinoids that kill bees. They're covered in wax mixed with morpholine to make them shiny. That fresh apple in the supermarket? It was picked up to 14 months ago and stored in controlled atmosphere storage with methylcyclopropene gas to stop ripening. Your apples? They get sprayed with absolutely nothing. When aphids attack, and they will, you release ladybugs you've been keeping in reed bundles. When fungus threatens, you spray with horsetail tea because horsetail contains natural silica that strengthens cell walls. It's the same silicon that modern organic farmers use, except they buy it in bottles for $50 a gallon, and you make it from weeds. Now let's talk about your pear trees. You grow wardens, cooking pears so hard they could be used as weapons, but when stewed for hours with honey and spices, they become food, fit for nobles. You've got Catherines that won't ripen until December, stored in straw in your cold cellar. Perry pears that make a wine so good it rivals anything from French grapes. Modern pears. They're basically all Bartletts and Boscs, bred for uniform size and ability to ripen after being picked green. They're sprayed with antibiotics, actual antibiotics, to prevent fire blight. Streptomycin, the same stuff used to treat tuberculosis, is misted over pear orchards up to 8 times per season. Your fire blight prevention? You prune infected branches and burn them. That's it. If a tree gets too infected, you cut it down, burn it, and plant something else. Brutal? Yes. But you're not creating antibiotic-resistant bacteria that will plague humanity for generations. April brings your service trees into bloom. Service berries, or June berries or Saskatoons, depending on who's asking. are basically nature's blueberries, if blueberries had a baby with almonds and decided to be more nutritious. They've got more antioxidants than modern superfruits, more iron than spinach, more calcium than milk. Modern agriculture forgot they existed, too hard to ship, too soft when ripe, don't respond well to mechanical harvesting, so instead we get blueberries grown in former pine forests doused with sulfuric acid to lower the pH because blueberries need acid soil and we'd rather pour industrial chemicals on the ground than grow fruits adapted to the soil we actually have. Your service berries grow wild at the edge of your orchard. No cultivation needed. Birds get half, you get half. Everyone's happy. They ripen in waves, so you're picking fresh fruit for weeks instead of having everything ripen on the same Tuesday like modern commercial fruit. Then there are your quinces. Oh, your quinces. These things are so aromatic. Wealthy Romans used them as air fresheners. Raw, they'll turn your mouth inside out with astringency. But cooked, they become perfumed, pink, perfect. They're the source of marmalade. The word literally comes from marmelada, Portuguese for quince preparation. Modern shoppers walk past quinces in specialty stores, confused by this yellow, lumpy fruit that looks like a pear with self-esteem issues. They don't know that quinces have 4 times the pectin of apples, making them perfect for jellies without adding commercial pectin extracted with acid and standardized with dextrose. Summer, the paradise before pesticides. June, your orchard is humming. Literally, bees everywhere because you haven't killed them with neonicotinoids, birds singing because you haven't poisoned their food supply with carbofuran. Your trees are covered in fruit that's developing at its own pace, not forced with synthetic growth regulators. You're checking your bullaces, wild plums that taste like concentrated plum essence. They're small, about thumb-sized, ranging from yellow to black-purple. Modern agriculture says they're not worth growing, too small for commercial harvesting, too variable in ripening time, too intense in flavor for modern palates trained on sugar water disguised as fruit. But you know better. These bullaces make a jam so intense, you use half of what you'd need with modern plums. They ferment into wine that could strip paint or cure sadness, depending on the dose. The stones contain amygdalin, which your body converts to trace amounts of cyanide, not enough to hurt you, but enough that insects avoid the stored fruit. Modern plums, they're mostly Japanese varieties bred to be twice the size, with half the flavor. They're sprayed with synthetic pyrethroids that persist in the environment for months. They're treated with 1-methylcyclopropene to delay ripening, then artificially ripened with ethylene gas when they reach the store. You're also tending your mulberries, both white and black. These trees are so generous with fruit you can't harvest fast enough. They ripen over weeks, not days. The white ones are sweet enough to dry as sugar substitutes. The black ones stain everything they touch, which is why you use them for dye as much as food. Modern agriculture forgot mulberries exist, can't be shipped. They start fermenting within hours of picking, can't be mechanically harvested or too soft. So instead, we import goji berries from China at $30 a pound, even though mulberries have similar nutritional profiles and grow like weeds. July brings your cornelian cherries ripe, not actually cherries, they're dogwood fruit. Tart as lemons when barely ripe, sweet tart when fully red, medicinal at all stages. They've got more vitamin C than oranges, which you've never seen because they won't arrive in England for another 300 years. Modern farmers spray actual cherries with dimethyl disulfide for root knot nematodes. It's so toxic, the applicators wear hazmat suits. Your nematode control? You planted mustard as a cover crop last autumn. As it decomposed, it released natural compounds that nematodes hate. Same effect. 0 poison. You're watching for pests, but your pest control is elegant. Coddling moths going after your apples? You hang cloth soaked in vinegar and molasses. The moths drown themselves while your fruit stays clean. Compare that to modern orchards using organophosphates that cause developmental disorders in children living nearby. August means your sloes are forming. They won't be ripe until the first frost, but you're already planning. Sloes are the fruit of blackthorn, so astringent they'll vacuum seal your mouth shut if eaten raw, but macerated in alcohol with sugar, they become sloe gin, the only thing making winter bearable. Modern fruit production uses ethophon to trigger uniform ripening. It's a synthetic plant hormone that breaks down into ethylene. Your uniform ripening technique? You don't have one. Fruit ripens when it ripens. You pick daily, getting each piece at perfect readiness. Revolutionary concept, eating fruit when it's actually ripe. Your orchard floor isn't bare soil like modern orchards. It's a meadow, wildflowers, grasses, herbs. You're running sheep through here after fruit set, letting them eat the groundfall and fertilize simultaneously. Their hooves press seeds into the soil, spreading your best varieties naturally. Modern orchards maintain bare soil with glyphosate, killing everything except the crop trees. Then they wonder why they need synthetic fertilizers when they've murdered the soil biology that creates natural fertility. They spray 2.4-D, a component of Agent Orange, to prevent any competing vegetation. Autumn, the forgotten harvest. September arrives with your meddlers finally sizing up. These fruits are absolutely bizarre by modern standards. They look like large brown rose hips with their calyx spread open at the top, earning them the unfortunate nickname open-arse fruit in your time. You'll harvest them in November, after frost, then store them in straw until they blet, that controlled rotting that turns them into medieval candy. Modern consumers would run screaming from bletted meddlers. Brown mush that looks spoiled? But the taste, like dates mixed with apple butter, with hints of cinnamon and wine. No added sugar needed. Meanwhile, modern fruit is bred for sugar content so high, eating an apple spikes your blood glucose like drinking soda. You're harvesting rowans, mountain ash berries. Raw, they're toxic. Cooked, they're medicine and food. They make a jelly that pairs with game meat like nothing else exists. Vikings used them to prevent scurvy on long voyages. Modern science confirms they have more vitamin C than oranges, plus sorbic acid, a natural preservative so effective we synthesize it for commercial food preservation. But modern agriculture doesn't grow rowans commercially. Can't be eaten raw? Liability issue? Requires processing, too complicated. So instead, we import acai berries from Brazilian rainforests, contributing to deforestation when rowans would grow in Scotland naturally. October brings your wild service tree fruit ripe. These are the forgotten gems of medieval orchards. They taste like dates mixed with apricots, develop natural alcohol as they over-ripen, and were once so valued they were used as currency. The wood is worth more than oak for fine furniture. Modern fruit farming destroyed most service trees. Too slow growing, takes 15 years to fruit. Unpredictable yields, can't be grafted easily. So they're nearly extinct in Britain now, when once they marked ancient boundaries and fed entire villages. You're also collecting crab apples, not for eating fresh, they'd turn your face inside out. But they're pure pectin bombs. One basket of crab apples has more natural gelling power than a case of commercial shore gel. You're making jellies, adding them to other fruit preserves, using them to clarify ale. Modern jam making relies on pectin extracted from citrus peels using acid, standardized with sugar and preservatives, sold in packets. Your pectin comes from fruit you'd grow anyway, requires no processing beyond cooking, and works better because it's fresh. The hazelnuts are ready. Your hedge is full of them, because hedges aren't just boundaries, they're food sources. Hazelnuts, sloes, rosehips, elderberries, wild apples, all growing in the same space modern farmers would spray with herbicide to maintain a clean fence line. Let's talk about those elderberries. Modern influencers pay $40 for a small bottle of elderberry syrup, claiming it boosts immunity. You're making gallons of it because elder grows like a weed and produces more berries than you know what to do with. No cultivation, no spraying, no inputs except time to harvest and cook. You're storing everything in ways that would horrify modern food safety inspectors but actually work. Apples in the cellar, layered in straw, not touching each other. They'll keep until May. No controlled atmosphere storage, no smart fresh technology, no wax coating. just cool, humid, dark conditions and varieties bred for keeping, not looking pretty. Your pears go into even stranger storage. Some wrapped individually in oak leaves and packed in barrels. Others stored near, but not touching, quinces, because quinces release ethylene naturally, ripening the pears slowly. It's the same ethylene modern storage facilities inject artificially, except yours comes free from fruit. Winter, the truth about real food. December, snow covers your orchard, but in your storeroom, you've got more variety than a modern supermarket. 30 types of apples, each with different uses. 10 varieties of pears. Medlars blended to perfection. Quinces perfuming the entire space. Dried service berries, pickled rowans, fermented bullaces. You pull out a foxwhelp apple, one of your bitter sharps for cider making. Modern cider apples are sprayed with captafol, a fungicide so carcinogenic it's banned in many countries but still used where regulations are lax. Your fungicide? Milkway spray when needed, which changes leaf pH enough to prevent fungal growth. Same effect, zero cancer risk. Let's address the elephant in the room. Organic farming. Modern organic certification allows 25 synthetic pesticides. Copper sulfate, which organic farms spray liberally, is more toxic to soil life than many synthetic alternatives. Rotenone, used by organic farmers until recently, causes Parkinson's disease. Pyrethrin, still allowed, kills bees just as dead as synthetic versions. Your medieval farming is beyond organic. It's default organic. Not because you're trying to meet some certification standard that allows natural poisons, but because you literally have no other choice. Your pest control is birds, beneficial insects, and accepting some losses. Your fertilizer is animal manure and decomposed plant matter. Your disease control is selection. Sick trees get culled, healthy ones get propagated. Modern apples have been bred for sugar content that averages 15 to 19%, higher than Coca-Cola. Your apples average 6 to 10% sugar, but with complex flavors from acids, tannins, and aromatics that modern breeding eliminated for shelf stability. You're eating food. They're eating sugar delivery systems shaped like fruit. January. You're grafting again, but indoors this time, taking cuttings from your best trees, storing them in damp sand in the cellar, preparing for spring grafting. Each cutting is a clone of the parent tree. No genetic modification, no radiation-induced mutations like modern ruby red grapefruit, no chromosome doubling with colchicine. Just patient selection over generations. You're planning next year's orchard. Where to plant the new quince? Should you try that pear variety your cousin has? Can you graft mulberry onto Osage orange for hardiness? These are thousand-year experiments. Modern agriculture thinks in quarterly reports. Meanwhile, modern biofruit in European supermarkets, what Americans call organic, is often grown in hydroponic greenhouses with synthetic nutrients, never touching actual soil. It's shipped thousands of miles, refrigerated with sulfur dioxide, and sold for triple the price of conventional fruit that might actually be fresher. Your fruit travels maybe 5 miles from tree to market. No refrigeration because you pick things when they're actually ripe for eating. No sulfur dioxide because you're not trying to make grapes last 3 months. No wax coating because nobody expects apples to be shiny. February, the worst of winter, you're eating stored apples that are starting to wrinkle, but they're still good. Concentrated flavor, actually. Modern apples would have rotted by now without controlled atmosphere storage. But you grew keeping varieties. Brownlee's russet, French crab, winter pearmain, selected over centuries for storage quality, not appearance. You're also eating preserved medlars, their complex flavor a reminder that food doesn't have to be simple. Modern fruit breeding aims for one note: sweet. Your medieval fruits are symphonies. Sweet, sour, bitter, astringent, aromatic, all at once. It's the difference between a factory pop song and a symphony orchestra. Your neighbor brings over some dried service berries. You trade some quince leather, basically medieval fruit roll-ups, but made with just fruit and thyme, no corn syrup or red dye 40. These preserves will last years without refrigeration. Try that with a modern fruit cup. Spring returns. The cycle continues March again. You're back in the orchard with your grafting knife. But this year, you're grafting something special, a cutting from the ancient mulberry in the monastery garden. It's supposedly from a tree brought back from the Crusades. True? Who knows? But it produces fruit so dark it's almost black, so sweet birds get drunk on the fermented groundfall. Your son is with you now, learning. He watches as you make the perfect cut, angle the blade just so, match cambium to cambium. You're teaching him what your father taught you, that fruit trees are partners, not products. That an orchard is a conversation with the future. That the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. He asks why you grow so many strange fruits when the market in town mostly wants regular apples. You hand him a blended medlar, watch his face transform from disgust to surprise to delight as he tastes it. That's why. Because diversity is resilience. Because flavor matters more than shelf life. Because your orchard is a library of genetics that modern agriculture is burning for quarterly profits. Modern farming has reduced apple varieties from 17,000 in the 1800s to about 90 commercially grown today. Pears from 3,000 varieties to maybe 10 in supermarkets. We're experiencing the greatest loss of agricultural biodiversity in human history, while you're maintaining dozens of varieties in a few acres. Your primitive medieval techniques, grafting, companion planting, integrated pest management, polyculture orcharding, are now being discovered by permaculture practitioners who act like they invented something new. You've been doing regenerative agriculture since before it needed a name. The final harvest. You're old now, older than most medieval farmers get. Your hands shake as you hold the grafting knife, but muscle memory takes over. One more cut, one more graft, one more tree that will feed people long after you're gone. Your orchard is unrecognizable from when you started. What was once pasture is now a food forest. Apples and pears in the overstory, medlars and quinces below, service berries and hazelnuts at the edges, berries and herbs on the ground. It produces more food per acre than any modern monoculture orchard, with zero external inputs. You watch your grandson play in the same trees you planted as a young man. He's eating an apple. Not a perfect, waxed, uniformly red supermarket apple, but a russeted, complex, living thing that connects him to this land in ways modern fruit never could. The church bells ring for evening prayer. You lean against a pear tree your grandfather planted, eating a medlar your father grafted, watching your grandson climb a service tree you started from seed. This is what modern agriculture lost. The long conversation between generations, the patience to wait for trees to mature, the wisdom to grow food instead of commodities. You've never heard of pesticides, fungicides, or herbicides, never seen a soil test or used synthetic fertilizer, never worried about maximum yields or uniform fruit size. And yet your orchard is more productive, more resilient, more sustainable than anything modern chemistry has created. Your medieval orchard will outlive you by centuries. Some of your trees will still be producing when steam engines are invented. A few might survive to see the same chemicals that won World War II repurposed to fight insects. One or two might even last long enough to see farmers realize that maybe, just maybe, you had it right all along. But you won't see any of that. You'll die as you lived, covered in soil, surrounded by trees, leaving the world more fruitful than you found it. And somewhere, in a supermarket 500 years from now, someone will pay extra for an heirloom apple that has half the complexity of your worst tree. They'll Instagram their sustainable breakfast while eating fruit covered in more chemicals than you knew existed. They'll talk about discovering forgotten fruits that you grew by the ton. You close your eyes, listening to the wind in your orchard. Every tree tells a story. Every fruit holds a memory. Every harvest connects past to future in an unbroken chain that industrial agriculture spent a century trying to break. Tomorrow, if God wills it, you'll be back out here, grafting, pruning, tending, growing food that doesn't need warning labels in ways that don't require hazmat suits for people who know what real fruit tastes like. Because that's what medieval farmers do. They grow food, not commodities. They tend orchards, not production units. They feed people, not supply chains. And those forgotten fruits they grew, they didn't need to come back. They never should have left.